Yeah, yes. You are.
Yes,
Randy? Yeah. Tough.
We're really happy on. So what happened after first? It was almost 2 years. So, I had a holiday, so happy.
You are.
It's a good thing. It's a common situation. He's got it now. Yeah, the only thing is he doesn't have to work. Both bands. Actually, maybe easier.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Here we go. On behalf of the Ankeny Area Chamber of Commerce Governmental Relations Committee, I would like to welcome all of you to tonight's Mayor and City Council candidate forums. Tomorrow night, we'll be welcoming the candidates for Ankeny School Board. My name is Chris Werman, and I'm co-chair of the Governmental Relations Committee, and I'll be your moderator throughout the evening for both forums. We thank you for attending either live or virtually. After receiving feedback from our latest forum, we're pleased to provide these forums, both live and live streamed, to increase participation, as well as to take advantage of the existing audio technology in the City Council chambers. It's just terrific. There is overflow seating here tonight on the first level, watching live as well. People attending here live in person are able to submit questions, and we'll be asking those questions if time permits toward the end of the session. The mission of our committee is to provide communication and education on government action and policy issues that may impact our chamber membership here in Ankeny by facilitating the efficient exchange of information between our members and our elected officials. Please note on the papers that are throughout the room and that were distributed, the forum rules and regulations. They're also on the screen that let us conduct a meaningful and respectful forum. The Governmental Relations Committee strives to make the forum neutral in content and fair to all participants. Our forum tonight will carry the following format: opening remarks by the candidates, questions from the chamber membership and the audience, closing remarks that will finish up the session. During the event, we will be taking questions from the audience. Please write your question down on a note card. I saw Tom handing out note cards earlier, but they are provided if you want to raise your hand as well. Also on the first level, we're doing the same thing, and we will collect the questions and get to them as time permits and as explained in the rules and regulations. On the first level, please give your questions and your card to Ann Wright. And Ann, if you could raise your arm downstairs, that would be terrific. All certified candidates were invited to participate in these forums. All city council and school board candidates have confirmed their attendance either tonight or tomorrow night. Of the 2 certified mayor candidates for the city of Ankeny, only Mark Holm confirmed his attendance, while candidate Michael Moore declined the invitation and is not present. Please welcome candidate Mark Holm. Mark, your opening statement.
All right. Thank you, Chris. Thank you to the Chamber tonight for hosting this event, and thank you for everyone coming out in this cold October rainy evening. Welcome to the library if you haven't been here before. This is quite an asset for our community. I'm going to move quickly tonight since I'm kind of speaking to myself here. Our speaking is kind of a one-sided conversation. So a little bit about me. I've served the last 10 years on the Ankeny City Council. I ran for office 10 years as someone who wanted to change the philosophy of spending in Ankeny. Fast forward to today, we've had 8 years of tax cuts. We've reduced our city debt by 45%. We're one of the cheapest city tax levies in Polk County to live in, and that's the city levy. The cities that beat us are Sheldon, Mitchellville, and Alderman. No offense to them, but we're a full-service city with fire and police. We reduced our debt by 45%, and that's just some of what I've accomplished in the last 10 years. But changing that philosophy of spending was something that I wanted to do. I ran for office to do something, not be somebody. So one thing I've learned about the difference between running for mayor versus running for council is everyone wants to know about me personally. When I was running for council, it was policy. What's your policy on this? What's your policy on that? So I'm going to give just a little bit of brief background on where I came from. I was born in rural Iowa in a hospital, grew up on a farm. I learned early on to do chores before school. My first job was at Hy-Vee. I didn't really want to go to school, to college, Iowa State. I want to stay on the farm. That's what I love. I love my commute between Ames and Ankeny when I go to work in Ames. I get to watch the crops grow. I get to watch the soil turn. And that's a connection to my heart that I just can't get rid of. It was born in me, and I love Iowa, and I love the Midwest. Once I was at Iowa State, I was a political science major with an entomology minor, and that's bugs. And that's a strange combination, but my counselor to this day still remembers me by the fact that you have the bug minor. So when I'm out running and biking, a lot of times you may see me standing somewhere looking down at the ground. I'm looking at insects. So my goal, I will tell you what brought me to Ankeny is I met a girl at Iowa State, and she was an Ankeny High School graduate. We now have 3 kids and reside here in Ankeny for the past 20-some years. My goal as mayor is to maintain Ankeny's status as the best community in central Iowa to raise a family, grow a business, or start a business. That's what's important, and that's what I've done, and that's what I want to continue to do. My record stands and speaks for me, so I will yield my remaining time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate your opening comments. We're going to start with the first question here tonight. And what is the most critical issue, or what are the most critical issues facing the city of Ankeny? And what is your suggested approach to solve them?
One of the most critical issues facing us right now is something we often take for granted, and that is water. Ankeny is growing at an exponential rate, one of the fastest cities in the nation. The Des Moines Water Works has very limited ability to refine our water. So what we're continuing to do and have been doing for quite a bit of time is working with Des Moines Water Works, trying to create a regional water body that Ankeny has representation on to secure the future for growth for water resources. This summer, we experienced a drought. We went to a phase 2 water rationing, and that was voluntary. We've laid out plans for phase 3 and 4. And when we get into those phases, we start talking about water restrictions. Water is a very valuable commodity. I assume everyone here realizes that. But imagine one day if you wake up and you can't turn your faucet on because the water has been turned off, because we've hit our limit and we've had to restrict the water usage, or we have to start getting bottles of water for certain days. That is not where we want to go. So that is one of the most pressing issues we have right now that often goes overlooked in Ankeny because we take it for granted that we'll always have water. That is something we have to secure. And our current mayor has been working very diligently with Des Moines Water Works and that board to try to secure our future. We hear of cities like Urbandale and West Des Moines starting to refine their own water. That tells you that water is a real problem, and we have to stay on top of that, or it will shut us down. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. We're thankful for rain tonight then, aren't we?
That we are.
Definitely. So our second question is, what would be your 3 immediate priorities once elected?
The first priority, of course, is getting up to speed. I've served the last 9 years as pro tem or vice mayor. But that's not the same role. Gary has done a great job. He's always been around. I've only filled in for a couple meetings. But being the actual mayor itself is going to deal with appointments. We have a lot of boards that are coming up beginning of the year. A lot of terms expire. Getting our planning session going. We'll have potentially a new makeup of the council with the mayor being gone and Carrie Walter Ashby not seeking re-election. There are 2 seats on council up for re-election. So we need to go back and revisit the goals and have a strategy session with our strategic planner, update our strategic plans, make sure that we're still in alignment with all of those. And then the third thing is I want to sit down with our council members and continue to work with city management and make sure that we have a transparent and open government, continue to do the people's business out in the public, have additional work sessions, conversations at council meetings, and continue the practice of what brought us what we got during COVID, which is having our meetings online so the public can participate. So just transparency is a big issue for me.
Thank you. Our third question is, as Ankeny mayor, how would you position the city of Ankeny as a leader within the greater Des Moines metro and central Iowa area, somewhat related to what you've just commented on with water, but particularly, how would you position the city as a leader within the greater Des Moines metro and central Iowa?
Very similar to what I have done for the past 10 years, Ankeny first. We are now arguably the 2nd largest city in the metro. The census data probably suggests West Des Moines might be when they become finalized, but based on our growth, we will be the 2nd largest city. When I ran for council and was elected, one of the things I wanted to do was get involved and have a voice for Ankeny, and I ended up volunteering for the Metro Waste Authority Board, which is our landfill recycling and solid waste, our yard waste and stuff. And I went down to Des Moines with the idea that I wanted to make an impact there and that I wanted Ankeny to take the lead. And eventually I became board chair and chaired that 17-member board and was able to work through many things on behalf of Ankeny and continue to do so. Right now we're looking at a consolidated waste program to get the multiple garbage trucks off our streets and reduce that, and also get a better price for all of our citizens. We're really one of the few metros that have 7 or 8 carriers. So we're looking into that. That process is underway. The other thing that I did while I was down there was I assisted with a municipal utility, our municipal recycling facility. And that will open later this year to make our recycling a valuable commodity once again. Right now, the machinery that a private company is using is a little bit dated, and there's not a lot of market value for the recycling commodities. So our citizens have deemed recycling to be extremely valuable to the environment, and it's extremely valuable to the landfill too, to reduce or increase the life of the landfill. So we ushered that through, and that facility should open here soon. So Ankeny First is mine, my priority in the metro. Of course, I have 10 years experience of working with other leaders in the community, and I realize that, as I have with my council, just because you put something first doesn't mean that you leave everyone else behind. We have to work together as a metro. I've built relationships with all of the other community leaders, the mayor of Altoona, Bondurant, pretty much everyone in every city I've got a connection with and working relationship with. They know how I handle myself, and I know how they do. So I want to be able to continue to build that relationship as mayor now with them.
Thank you. Our next question is commenting on the Ankeny Plan 2040, and you might need to even explain what that is to our audience here. Is any amendment to the plan necessary? And if so, how would it be generated?
So the Ankeny 2040 plan is a plan that looks out into the year 2040 and suggests that the way Ankeny will grow. It's based off of zoning, traffic projections, and where we'd like to see the roadmap for the future, essentially, the roadmap to 2040. When it comes to adjustments, there's always a need for adjustments for that. We have many new developers that come into town, and they buy up large chunks of land with certain plans in mind, and things change. So that plan always needs to be looked at. Now, we don't tend to update it, every meeting. Ideally, we'd update it every couple years. We update it, I think, every 10 years as a major update, generally. But there's always a need to keep an eye on a city that's growing as fast as ours to that 2040 plan, to update it, because the situation could change. A few years ago, we were told there would never be a Costco in town. Well, the talk of the town was for a year there was coming a Costco. Well, we can't confirm now there is a Costco coming. And that's going to require a little bit of change up in that area as far as just traffic and infrastructure is put in. That does fit into our planned urban development that we had up there. So that fits into the 2040 plan itself, but the infrastructure and other needs don't. And one could easily surmise that there's going to be a significant amount of commercial growth up on that east side of 36th Street in the very near future.
All right, thank you very much. Our next question deals with really somewhat the structure here in Ankeny. Would you recommend any change in the structure of Ankeny's boards and commissions to advise the city council?
No, I think that they work very well. I was, before elected to council, I was a commissioner. I appreciate the work that our commissioners do. It's a volunteer basis. It's very long hours, and it's almost a thankless job. And I'd like to thank anyone that's listening now that is a commissioner. I always appreciate their reports at council meetings and thank them for the work they do. But right now it appears as though our commissions are operating as they should be. I'm not aware of any particular situations where there needs to be an adjustment. As we move in, we continue to grow as a city. There may be need for additional commissions, which we'll work with staff and with our legal counsel on to determine that. And of course, council will have the policy decision to determine whether or not there needs to be a new commission or not.
Thank you for that. If elected, tell us your approach to interface with the city manager and staff that you've just mentioned.
Interface thank you for the question, by the way. The interface with city and staff is, it's not going to be a big change. The current mayor has been a mentor of mine for many years, and I've watched and would like to very much model my relationship with the city manager, much as his. Stay in contact as needed. When the situation arises, I have the city manager's cell phone number. He has mine. Pretty much we'll be able to communicate at all times as necessary. But I do feel that the city manager, being an employee of the council, is there to work with the council and the mayor. So really the approach I have and interface I'm going to be is that of an employer, and we will continue to navigate the fastest growing city in the Midwest and try not to change anything to mess that up.
Alrighty. Well, those are the questions that were submitted from the committee or through the public in advance. And Tom, I'll ask if we have any questions from the audience to add to this. We thank you. We'll let you take a break and have some water here. So we've got some coming up, it looks like.
Still working on it.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, first question here from the audience. If you cut our taxes or decrease our taxes, what service or program will you reduce or eliminate to compensate for the reduced revenue?
All right, thank you for that question. The beauty of that is we do not have to reduce or cut any services because of our growth. The challenges with cities have is you're either growing or you're dying. And fortunately for Ankeny, we're growing at an exponential rate. What we've done over the last 10 years is live within our growth. As our valuations increase, in 2010, we had 106 million in residential valuation increase in 2010. In 2020, we had 298 million, and that's just in residential growth, and that's in 1 year. So when we talk about reducing your levy, we're not talking about cutting any services. We're actually increasing our fire service, our police. We're adding numbers onto that. We're adding service into our sewer and our facilities. So we're not cutting any services. We're growing and we're expanding, but we're growing at a fiscally responsive rate. So we have seen hundreds of millions of commercial investment. So I just talked about 300 million in residential. So our valuation is growing exponentially. So what we want to do is make sure that we are living within the growth of what we have and continue to provide services. So as we reduce the cost of government to you, and we forego, in the last 10 years, we've forgone about $30 million worth of collections we could have done if we didn't cut those taxes. That's your money. Go out and invest in the community, save it, live on it. It's yours. We don't need it. We want to continue that path. So thank you for the question.
Alrighty. Our second question from the audience is, talk to us about the city streets. Everybody's interested in that. What are your thoughts on street planning with our growth? Are we doing it right, or do we need to do it differently? If so, how? So comments on infrastructure here.
All right. Well, thank you for that question too. I don't know if the questioner knew I work for the DOT or not, but so I do have somewhat of a connection to the streets and the construction and all of that. The city streets are, something. We live in Iowa. We have freeze, we have rain, we have heat. The streets are always in need of repair. Our city planning, based on the grid system, there are improvements. We made a lot of changes on the way we are setting up our streets in the last 10 years with setting up with developments, turn signals, traffic studies, impact studies. The streets can always use more. The streets would be a never ending, but we have to keep it to that point where they don't degrade anymore. I think there are a few adjustments that can be done to our street building. A lot of our side streets are built by developers. We do not put a lot of underbase under that or rock. A lot of those are just put down on the dirt, compacted dirt. So I think moving forward, that's something that could add value to our citizens. Unfortunately, the cost is borne by the developer, which is then transferred to the residential prices. So we have to be careful on what we do on that. There's always an improvement for streets. What I will say is our streets are not Des Moines. If you haven't driven there lately, go down there. I'm afraid to take my 4-wheel drive truck through some of those streets. So our streets are fairly decent.
Thank you. Our next question, Ankeny is growing. What will you do to ensure opportunities to everyone?
Very open-ended question. So what we'll do to ensure opportunities for everyone, I will take the approach that we're going to try to keep government out of your way from enjoying your life. That you know how best to live your life. We want you to retain your money. We want to provide you amenities in town at a reasonable cost. Everyone loves our park system. I'm a cyclist, and I realize not everybody likes the bike trails, but bike trails bring a lot of people to town. So we're continuing to invest in that. Running, we sit next to a lake. There are a lot of opportunities. So I think that this best answer is just going to try to keep government out of your way.
All right, thank you. Our final question that I have here at hand, and I think more on the way, what is your position on proof of COVID vaccination to enter city buildings or private businesses? So you want me to repeat that question?
No, I think essentially what is my stance on the proof of COVID vaccination in inner city buildings?
Yes.
Well, there is a fine line here. So on the one hand, we want to protect our city employees, but most of our city employees are wearing masks. I believe that people have a choice to make when it comes to COVID, and because they are paying for the government here locally and state, nationally along the way, I don't believe there's a need for proof of vaccination to enter a public building. If it is deemed necessary that we see another significant spike or variant in COVID, we may go back to requiring masks to be in buildings. But I was never a big fan of that. I'm not a fan of requiring proof of vaccination to enter a public building.
All right, thank you. We'll let you take another sip of water and we'll see if we have any more questions. I believe more are on the way. So we hope you're enjoying the dialogue here tonight and the conversation that we're having with Mark Holm as Ankeny mayor candidate. And we're sorry to see that Michael Moore did not come for an equal exchange of information, but he did decline the invitation. So here we go. All right. What would you do to improve access to affordable housing for people who work here in the city?
Access to affordable housing, I guess I'm not familiar with the city owning any particular buildings where we would housing. So housing is driven by the private sector, by developers, by people bringing projects to the city that qualify for those credits. So as far as the city getting involved, I don't see a role for the city to do that.
All right, and another question on the way. This is a lengthy one, so I can repeat it if I need to. What vision do you have for the new Human Rights Commission? If you appoint commissioners, what criteria will you use and how will you know it is successful? I guess that's referring more or less to the Human Rights Commission, which has been appointed recently. So how will you appoint new commissioners? How will you know the commission is successful? Maybe that's the most important part of this.
So the vision for the commission is set forth in ordinance. So that is what the commission's charge is. When it comes to filling vacancies, I was fortunate that the mayor did ask me at the time we were seeing the original commission where we had scheduled 5 people and expanded to 7 because we had such high quality candidates that we felt there was the need to expand that to 7. That I would implement the same kind of process we use there, where we sat down and with a team of individuals and they made a recommendation to the mayor on who to appoint. It would be based on criteria that committee would work on, very similar to what we did before. I don't see a need to reinvent the wheel. I believe the commission is being successful now. It's in the process of establishing itself and defining itself in the community. COVID did slow it down a little bit, but the commission has a large charge, and they are finding their path now and getting comfortable with the direction they wish to go.
All right, thank you. And I guess that's our last question that we have from the audience as well as the committee. So with that, why don't you give us some closing remarks here and add anything that you've been unable to say so far?
All right, thank you. Again, thank you everyone for coming out tonight. As we move forward and Ankeny continues to grow and grow at the rate that we are, we need to have a proven leader. We need to have somebody who's been at the table. We need to have somebody who's worked in the metro, who's worked for the past 10 years for you. Someone who's fought to reduce taxes, someone who's been at the table discussing DART, our water resources. This isn't just a job. I mean, I've had an inside view to the mayor and I've been very close to him. This isn't something you just wake up one day and decide, I'm going to be mayor. This is a very serious situation. It requires a great deal of dignity, a great deal of compassion, a great deal of empathy, and a great deal of ability to work with others in our community. We're Ankeny. Ankeny should be number one. As we move forward, I've demonstrated a balanced approach in the past 10 years. I've listened to people. I have heard both sides of issues, and I try to figure out what's best for the general public. And we like to talk about left and right and this or that. And I like to say that, there's really nothing political about being on city council or being mayor. It's what's doing best for the citizens of Ankeny. Our police, our fire, our sanitary workers, all that. Nothing, they don't care whether or not you're a Republican or Democrat. And that's really the way I've tried to model myself for the past 10 years. Is I wanted to do what was best for the citizens. I ran for office because I was asked to run. I didn't run to be somebody. I ran to do something. I'm a public employee myself. I work at the Department of Transportation. I've taken nothing in my role as a council member back home with me as far as advancing my own personal cause. Every day I've got up for the citizens of Ankeny, and I've fought for you, and I've tried to do what is best for you, day in, day out. And over the next 4 years, when I'm elected mayor, I'm going to do exactly that again. I'm going to take those 10 years of knowledge that I've had. I'm going to lean on my resources, that my friends in the community, my mentor, Gary, and many other people in the community that I seek advice from. And I'm going to continue to lead every day with a positive voice for Ankeny. Ankeny is a growing city. We are going to be number one here is in the central Iowa to raise a family, to grow a business, and to start a business. And we hear that from our businesses. That's why we're having so many hundreds of millions of dollars invested in our community. So I will leave you with this. My name is Mark Holm. I'm running for mayor of Ankeny, and I would appreciate your vote on November 2nd. Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight.
Well, thank you. And on behalf of the Ankeny Area Chamber, I would like to thank Mark for joining us this evening and the public for your attendance and participation. The election for Ankeny Mayor, City Council, and School Board takes place on Tuesday, November 2nd, and certainly is an important election for everyone here and in the community. We'll take a break now. We're just about at 6:30. I'd like to ask the City Council candidates to come forward, if you would, about 20 of 7, and we'll try to get started a little bit early if we can for your forum. Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. What we're going to do tonight prior to starting the forum is actually do a drawing among the 4 city council candidates to establish an order of how they begin with their opening statements. And I will also offer that we'll be rotating the order throughout the evening on all the questions so that no one always has to go first or always goes last. So right now we're going to go ahead and start the drawing for the 4 positions. Edie? Yeah. All right.
Ballot order so far.
Nathan Willard is 3rd in order.
All right.
Joe Ruddy is number 4 in order. Bill Lou is number 2, so that makes Kelly Whiting 1st in order. Right? If you want to go up and be seated, we'll start with number 1 here in the 1st position to the left and finish with number 4 to my right on the dais. So Kelly would be where you are probably, Joe. Yeah. Kelly would be 1st, 2nd, 3rd, ending up with Joe as number 4. And we'll tape those name badges to the dais if we can right now. Get our logistics underway.
And folks watching at home, we will be starting at 7, so you got a couple more minutes.
A few more minutes here to rest and relax as we get our logistics in place. Thanks for your patience. For those just tuning in virtually, on behalf of the Ankeny Area Chamber of Commerce Governmental Relations Committee, I would like to welcome you to tonight's City Council Candidate Forum. We've just concluded the Mayor Candidate Forum, and tomorrow night we'll be hosting the candidates for the Ankeny School Board here in this facility. My name is Chris Werman. I'm the co-chair of the Governmental Relations Committee of the Chamber, and I'm going to be your moderator throughout the evening. Please note the forum rules and regulations that were distributed and are on the screen that let us conduct a meaningful and respectful forum. The Governmental Relations Committee strives to make this forum neutral in content and fair to all participants. During the event, we will be taking questions from the audience. Please write your question down on a note card, and they're provided in the back of the room. Raise your hand and they will be collected. I would say that Ann Wright on the first level in the extra room for seating is the one collecting the cards there. And Ann, raise your arm so that people will know who to give the card to. If we have time, as the schedule permits tonight, we'll be taking and addressing questions from the audience. All certified candidates were invited to participate in these forums. All City Council candidates confirmed their attendance. Please welcome our City Council candidates. Those of you that were in the room saw that we did a random drawing of the order of giving their comments, and we will start in that order. They're seated in that order as well, and we'll be rotating that throughout the evening so no one has to always be first with questions. Our candidates will have 2 minutes for their opening statements. And Kelly, we'd like to start with you as number 1 to give your comments, and then we'll just go through the other 3 candidates as well till we finish that up.
Thanks, Chris, and thanks to all those attending here in person and virtually and letting us have a platform to share our views with you. You know, last year we learned that local elections matter. In a lot of ways, we saw our livelihoods and our freedoms affected by decisions local officials made. During a difficult year, and always, I chose to stand up for individual choice and freedom and common sense. There's those in our community that will tell you all the ways they want to change Ankeny, the ways that Ankeny doesn't measure up to some standard. And I'm here to tell you that I value Ankeny's uniqueness, our hometown feel, and all the things that make us a place so many choose to call home. Quite simply, I just love Ankeny. That said, we do have some questions looming on the horizon, and I believe it's going to take an experienced council, an exceptional council, if you will, to meet the challenge. Difficult decisions need to be made, including participation in regional initiatives, mass transit, and our ratio of service to the tax load we bear for that, and difficulties with water systems and rates throughout our partnership with Des Moines Waterworks and other member communities. It's going to take a strong council with keen business acumen to make these decisions, along with input from our community members. And I'm here to hope that I can convince you today that I'm ready to make those decisions for Ankeny. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bill Liu. Thanks for having me here this evening. I've moved around a lot in my life, but I landed in Ankeny, Iowa. Why? Because we've got great schools here, great people, and great amenities. It's a perfect place for me to raise my 5- and 2-year-old children. I attended college at the University of Minnesota where I studied finance, and it wasn't until after a couple internships and towards the end of college I realized it wasn't for me. I wanted a more hands-on job, something where I could impact the community directly. So I became a police officer. Now, I've been a police officer in Iowa for almost 10 years now, and I love being relied on every day from complete strangers who need assistance. I started volunteering in Ankeny earlier this year, and because I felt it was time for me to give back to the city that's provided me and my family so much safety and comfort. And this is when I realized the ultimate volunteer opportunity would be to get elected to Ankeny City Council. If I was on the council, I would aim to be the most active and easily accessible council person. I would do it by continuing to volunteer in the community, attending community events, speaking with city leaders and residents to find out what we need to have Ankeny continue to be the best place to live in Iowa. And with the fast growing rate of Ankeny, the few priorities I feel need to be prioritized would be public safety, public works, and infrastructure. We got to stay ahead of the game and continuing to plan for our future. And being a municipal employee, I understand that it's not only important to speak with department leaders, but with the employees on the ground as well. One quick example I'll give is I've reached out to the Ankeny Police Officer Association, talked to them, and have their endorsement. So I'm just looking to bring a different perspective to our city council. Thank you very much.
Nathan?
I was born in Iowa City as the only Iowan in my family. My brother and sister were born in Colorado Springs, and my mom was a public health nurse. I see one of her students here in the room tonight. And my dad worked for the University of Iowa and served in the Air Force. And so from my earliest time growing up, I learned what it meant to think of other people, to think of the communities and institutions that we serve, and to take responsibility for the decisions that would bring them into the future. You know, I took that with me when I went away to college and had my first jobs afterwards. In the early 2000s, I thought I was going to change the world with software like everyone did. But after 7 years, I discovered that I was not really making the impact on people's lives that I thought I could, or that I thought it was my duty to do. And that was when I recognized my call to ministry. And that call to ministry has brought me to giant cities. I served as a hospital chaplain in Boston and little tiny towns in southern Appalachia, where I was mentoring some Baptists at Western Carolina University. And finally, it was a desire to sort of put down roots and to work and serve in the community in which we live that brought me to Ankeny 8 years ago. And it's incredible to be here in this building and think it was only 8 years ago that the district was Jethro's on a lake, right? As we have grown explosively in that time, it's great that we're not talking about a small town feel anymore. We're now a hometown feel, but we're not a small town. We are growing into a big city, and I think we need to make the decisions to find out what it's going to be that brings us all together as we grow and become a bigger city. And between the large cities I've lived in, the small and failed cities I've lived in, the mid-sized places I've lived, and the small towns, the thing that's always mattered has been neighborhoods. And the question is, how are we going to build the neighborhoods throughout this city so that we all have a place we can call home and all have a place that we belong? And there are going to be a lot of big things that go into that. Big things like transportation, big things that have to do with roads and what is the right size of road, things to do with where our water pressure is coming from. But they all come down to the same thing, which is how in 20 years will we look back and say, we built this city where people still want to come and in neighborhoods that they love.
Thank you. Joe?
I want to thank the chamber and supporters for being here tonight. A little bit about me. I grew up in Polk City, right up the road here, and I graduated at North Polk High School. I learned from my parents who actively served in the community. They were active with the volunteer fire and rescue, the library, community events, youth sports. And that's what gave me my desire to serve the community of Ankeny. I grew up in church in Ankeny. My dad was a youth leader at a church in Ankeny. My first real job was in Ankeny at the South Fairway when the South Fairway was clear out in the middle of nowhere. And that's where I met my wife. She grew up in Ankeny. She went to high school in Ankeny. We've been married and lived here. I have 2 kids, Connor, who's 7, and Lily, who's 5. In my professional career, I own MarketWise Ag Services Ankeny, where I help farmers market grain. So I understand the importance of dealing with other people's money. And I believe that that will help me handling Ankeny taxpayers' money. I take that responsibility very seriously. A very well-known individual asked me to run, and that person is no longer with us, but he said, Joe, you're a good person. You're a likable person. You listen, and you're very professional. So I'm excited to represent Ankeny on the city council, to listen, to learn, and to act.
Thank you, all 4 of you, for your opening comments. And now we'll get to the questions at hand. Again, these questions have been submitted by the Governmental Relations Committee, as well as members of the chamber and the public. Let me know if I need to repeat the question to any of you before you answer tonight. Bill, we're going to start with you and then follow in consecutive order again. The first question we have is, Ankeny residents say they like living in this community. As a city council member, what changes do you believe are needed in Ankeny? Bill, start us out.
I agree. I also like living in Ankeny. But changes that are needed in Ankeny, I'd say the only changes would be to continue to improve on infrastructure, amenities for not only families, but for senior citizens as well. I know we have the senior center opening up soon, and that's a great step into addressing the importance of seniors in our community, who happens to be one of the fastest, if not the fastest, growing demographic in our city. We have many awesome amenities for young families that we can take advantage of all the time, and we need to continue to improve our amenities to offer to everyone else as well.
All right, thank you. Nathan, let's have your answer to the same question. Do you need to have it repeated?
I do not.
All right.
So I agree with Bill. It's a great place to live. I'm glad that I still live here. It's been a pleasure to call these past 8 years, the longest I've lived anywhere except for Iowa City, to call Ankeny my home. And there are things we can do better. First of all, as we're growing, we need to make sure that we are not getting into just endless seas of residential areas. We need to make sure that the commercial areas are spread out around the city. We need to work with developers to encourage that because every time someone's got to drive 5 miles across town to go get something they need, that is another car on the road, that is another hassle that they have, and it's another thing that says, hey, maybe I want to have a small town instead. And so that's one thing we need to keep on working on, is building out more commercial areas and reducing commutes to get to those things. Another thing we need to work on is, I work on Delaware, and I don't know if you've noticed, but all of the retail stores in Delaware have had help wanted signs open for the last 5 years. And I think one of the reasons for that is that people can't afford to live here and work on those salaries. And so one of the changes we need to have is to see how much we can encourage more growth for affordable workforce housing. Because again, I don't know about you, but I am sick of standing in line for 10 minutes at Target, right? And so that's an improvement that we need to have for all of our qualities of life. To echo what Bill's saying too, that there are some human services that are lacking, and the city's only got a limited role in that as we go forward. But as a pastor, I see people come through my doors and don't know always where to send them for additional help. I can help them a little bit, but I can't do all of the work there. And we used to have a place to send people, and we don't anymore. And so as we talk about a hometown feel and a small town feel in Ankeny where we care about each other, I think one of the changes we need in Ankeny is a place that we can send people who are really in need of help. And I've done some of that work through the Ankeny Ministerial Association, but it's not, enough where we are. And so those are the three big things that I see that we need some improvement on. And it's going to take all of us working together to plan well and find the right solutions.
Thank you. Then we'll go ahead and Joe, let's have your answer.
The biggest change I believe in would be for our police. I've also met with our police department, and I believe they lack some critical resources. As a parent, I want safe neighborhoods. And to hear that our police are not allowed to share activity on social media bothers me. We were in South Dakota the week of July 12th through 16th, and we saw that the neighborhood got hit. People were tugging car doors, and they're not allowed to spread that awareness to say, hey, blocks 13th to 15th Street have been hit. You may want to lock your cars or pull your garage door openers in. There's thieves out there. I know Sam's Club got hit and they wiped the jewelry out. I talked to a dentist and he said, why aren't we hearing these things? I've got fentanyl and I've got nitrous in my basement. I want our police to safely get across the town to an emergency effectively through intersections to a rescue or a critical rescue or a kidnapping or something of that affair. At the rate we're growing, we can't lack the resources for our public safety and our emergency. We need to look at another fire station. Ankeny is proud to have fast response time. I live clear up on the northwest side of the town. We had to call an ambulance and it was there in 8 minutes. That's fast. And that we need to continue to improve on as we grow and as the neighborhoods push north and west. Eventually we're going to need another fire station. So as we grow, those are the changes and improvements I would like to make to our public safety.
Thank you for your answer. Kelly?
So, I think the numbers speak for themselves. There's a lot of people that want to live in Ankeny. We're continually one of the fastest growing cities. Last year we grew a Waukee. So, when Waukee likes to brag that they grew, well, we grew a Waukee. So, this is kind of maybe one that most people wouldn't think of, but the council has been studying transportation in our city. And we pay a lot of money into DART to get mass transit in Ankeny, and we don't really get much for it. We pay millions of dollars in. There's federal dollars that come in on our behalf, and we get some commuter routes and empty buses that drive around to places and don't really catch the people that need transportation. If we're going to pay those tax dollars in, that money needs to go to people that need transportation. We need to hit areas that have need for the transportation. We need to get people to medical appointments. We need to have transportation that takes people to the grocery store and the pharmacy. We don't need commuter routes to downtown when 40% of people say they're not commuting to downtown anymore. So we've got a lot of work there to do to make sure we're getting the bang for our buck for taxpayer dollars for transit.
All right, thank you. Well, we've completed question 1. So here we go with question 2. How would you approach and balance residential and commercial growth within the city? And Nathan, we will start with you for this question.
So to balance the residential and commercial growth within the city, we need to look at where it is that we need to have the commercial stuff. We're going to need to keep on building residential no matter what. I don't want to slow down residential construction in Ankeny. I think everyone's assessments are going up fast enough as it is. We don't want more taxes on that. And so we don't want to slow down the growth of residential. But if we're going to have continued residential growth, we need to have more areas where there are commercial plots. We need to have them not only on Delaware, please. I just was able to turn left out of my church this week, and so I'd like to keep that up. But we can move it out to the northwest and the northeast side as well. We're going to get, of course, giant commercial development, thank you, Kelly, of Costco over across Delaware. But if we can put the commercial areas closer to the residential areas, that means that we can have people with shorter commutes to any of the work they do in those buildings, to any of the retail they do for those buildings. And so what we need to see around Ankeny, I think, are a bunch of places like the new Ziggy's Coffee building over by Westwood. But at the same time, we need to keep encouraging companies like Craig to move here and to build here. We need to look at all of that space on South Delaware, that we still have space to build more industrial buildings and more commercial down there. And we need to see who are the local partners, local companies that need to expand, that need to bring good jobs to Ankeny, and see how we can work with them. The important thing there is to find people who are going to bring the good jobs to Ankeny. So we not only have the tax base for from the commercial properties, but also have people who are committed and invested in living and working with Ankeny and working with us for the future to improve the area. And so I think that's the best way to balance. We keep on building residential, we find new places for light commercial, and we continue to find good partners for heavy industrial and heavy commercial.
Thank you for your answer. Joe.
And I actually think Ankeny's done a nice job and improved on this over the years. I was around when Uptown kind of started to go down, and then you saw the life and the revival of and the new area of Prairie Trail come to life. But I was just in Uptown a couple Saturdays ago, and it was packed. Real Deals. My wife made me go into Real Deals, and it was packed full of people. I went into several of those shops, and it's nice to see them alive and kicking again. And that's because our current council and staff have put us into a financial position of strength and in a position for economic success. And they also work with the developers. The developers own the ground. It's the city doesn't write checks for ground. The developers own it. Having Costco go into the north side will help things. It'll relieve some pressure off of the Delaware area. So there is a balance. I think they do a nice job of multifamily units to buffer residential areas along busy streets and commercial areas. Again, we're not perfect, but I think we're doing a pretty good job.
Alrighty, thank you. We'll continue on with Kelly.
So we need the commercial lines growth. All the commercial buildings that we bring into town bring in much needed tax revenue to our schools, but don't bring students. So it's a real win for our schools when we bring commercial lines growth into town. And it's a win for our residents because usually it brings amenities. If you look out on our website, you'll see our comprehensive plan. It spells out lots of neighborhood commercial. So it speaks to that point of bringing commercial into the west and the northwest side of town, and that's needed too. The last thing I think I would touch on is the need to improve the tax revenue on multifamily. We get a lot of multifamily development in Ankeny because of the way property taxes are structured. It's very favorable to build multifamily housing in our metro because of the low property taxes. Most of the big developments you see for multifamily in Ankeny are out-of-state developers taking advantage of that. And so as we look to improve the tax burden for everyone, we need to make sure that those developers building large multifamily are paying their share.
Thank you. We'll move on. Bill?
Really echoing what all the other candidates said, Ankeny is growing super fast in residential. We don't want to stop it, and we probably can't stop it. Everyone wants to live in Ankeny, the second largest city in the metro with great schools, great amenities. everyone wants to come here. That includes the businesses. They want to come here as well because they know the people are here. The current council, I think they're doing a great job as well, doing the balancing, realizing from the comprehensive plan where everything should be going to provide people the quick access they need to these commercial businesses. And one thing with this growth as well, we got to make sure public safety and their needs are being met, because with higher population, higher commercial businesses, it requires more public safety personnel and equipment for everyone to do a great job here in Ankeny for our residents.
Thank you for that. All right, we're ready for question number 3. And this is one that we'll start with Joe. How would you describe Ankeny to a potential resident, a potential business? Why should they locate here?
Well, it's the same reason I live here. I grew up in Polk City, and I met my wife here, right? Ankeny's a safe, clean, and affordable community. And the reason I can say that is because I've lived in Polk City, and we did live in Slater. And to find a level house in Slater that for here is much more expensive, actually. And their water is terrible. It's yellow. So the affordability of Ankeny is awesome. I lived in a duplex on State Street. So the city provides several levels of living. It provided me a job at the Fairway Meat Department, you know. And I have a business here too. So it's provided me an opportunity to work for farmers in Iowa. So I would describe Ankeny as a real opportunity for anyone, whether at growing at 6 to 7 people per day. That means people are attracted to Ankeny. It's families, it's parents, it's businesses moving here. Again, a lot of it is due to our leadership of the past 8-10 years, our current council and past councils, providing the opportunity because we're in a financial position of strength.
Thank you for your answer. Kelly, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, so, we have a lot to offer. One of those being the lowest city tax rate of any major city in Polk County and among the lowest in Iowa. Ankeny has a great hometown feel. I mean, we're different from other suburbs. We're not just adjacent to the metro. We're our own small, used to be a small town, grown into a bigger town. We have uptown, we've got the district, we've got our own thing going on. There's a lot of people that, go a long time, weeks and months without leaving Ankeny. That there's plenty to do here. We have an award-winning park system, Park City USA Award. And, it's one of those towns that has something for all generations. I think one of the coolest trends that we're seeing is grandparents moving into town to be close to grandchildren and just building that kind of community where it's multi-generational and there's something here for everyone.
Thank you. Bill?
I would describe Ankeny as a utopia. You got a young family? Come on, Ankeny. You retired? Come to Ankeny. Young professionals, come to Ankeny. We got so many amenities here. The school system is great, but the best part is the people, like I said earlier. Neighborly feel from all the residents that I meet. And I've moved all over the country and the world, I suppose, from China, Mississippi, Georgia, Michigan, Minnesota. I lived everywhere, and I ended up in Ankeny, and this is probably where I'm going to live for the rest of my life because of all those great amenities that come with the city that continues to grow at a rapid exponential rate. And that growth, I don't see it stopping anytime soon. So utopia would be the accurate description I would give to Ankeny.
Thank you. And Nathan, close us out then on question number 3.
I would describe Ankeny as a place that is easy to live. It's a place where you can see, if you got small kids, neighbors on your street that also have kids. It's a place where if you want to, you can walk to great things. I live near Uptown. You've got great access to biking trails and get around pretty well on a bike, although you still need a car to go grocery shopping. I would say also that Ankeny is a place where we are still working through our identity, that we've been a suburb after being a small town, and now we're trying to grow into our own thing. And that's a really exciting time to be here, as we have a lot of new businesses developing. We have opportunities for people who don't want to take the very convenient, but still annoying commute into Des Moines. And so this is a place where you can really have a good start for either your family or your new phase of life. One of the great things about it is I see all kinds of retired folks moving here to be closer to Ames, or to be closer to their grandchildren, or to be closer to the sort of walking and park amenities that we have here in Ankeny. And if you are any of those people, then you should move here. If you've got small kids, you should move here to be among your own people. If you're a little bit older, you've got that entire day when the young kids are not anywhere out in the city. And in between, you've got folks that you can meet for a cohort at an increasing number of retail and restaurant establishments. If you're a potential business, all those people live here in multiple phases of life. And so depending on what your business is, you have employees who are excited about living here and don't want to commute. You have also people who are coming to shop a variety of wares, because you got people moving here from China, you got people moving from Polk City, you got people moving from the wilds of Minnesota, and they all have different interests. And so it's a great place to be. And so I think that anyone who wants to have any of those things should locate here and also be part of building something new. Can you imagine 100,000 people in this place? I don't know when the last time we had a city in Iowa turn over 100,000 people, and it's a great time to be here.
All right, thank you. We'll move on then to our fourth question. And Kelly, we'll start with you. What is your perspective on taxes within Ankeny and how they are currently invested?
So we do a great job in comparison to our peers with taxes in Ankeny. The current council has been very disciplined financially and has really focused on projects that we can pay cash or partial cash for, really reducing our debt load. So I think by measure against our peer communities, we're kind of knocking it out of the park. That said, there's always still room for improvement. I think about how we could pay debt down more and, pay more cash for projects and further reduce that tax load. I get a lot of comments on roads in Ankeny, as do the other council members. And, the roads that are within our span of control, we have, accelerated road repair. Just for everyone's note, we don't have control over Highway 69 or Oro Labor. That's a state road, so just so you know that. But I think there's a lot to grow here. One area of focus I like is the uptown area. To me, it feels like the heart of Ankeny, and I think it's an area worthy of investment in our tax dollars to make sure we're building that and making that a great place to go.
Thank you. We'll move on, Bill.
I'd like to start this by first thanking the existing council and the previous council for 8 straight years of lowering the city tax rate. I'm sure all the Ankeny residents appreciate that very much. And it just goes to show how important the council values the dollars that we receive from the residents. And I know a big portion of the budget goes to public safety, which is one of the top priorities we need to continue to invest in and continue to reach out to the department leaders and the employees on the ground, not only public safety, but public works as well, to say, what do you guys need to make your jobs easier, to retain you guys, and what can we do to improve the lives of our residents, because you guys are freeing up more time to commit to these projects, and having the tools to do so would greatly improve the livelihood of the residents.
All right, thank you. Nathan.
I think we've done a pretty good job with taxes thus far in Ankeny. I have not been too displeased with where certainly the tax levy is. At the same time, as we are investing in a lot of public goods, including this building right here in the senior center, as we're investing in the parks right now, we do have the benefit, a lot of the parks are really new and have not reached that stage where we need to replace all of the equipment, although there's some that are older. I think that as we go forward with the taxes, with our tax assessments, we need to make sure that we are looking at what it is we want Ankeny to be. That the taxes are a part of that. They're certainly a part of what we are here, but they are not the reason that we live here. They're not the reason, by and large, they're not the reason that Ankeny exists, that Ankeny as the city exists to make life better for the people within it and to encourage this sense of a public within us. And so as we go forward with investment, they're very good, but we have some gaps. One of the things that we saw that we are working to fill is the senior center. And I really hope that turns into an actual senior center, that turns into a place where the city can provide services for seniors as well. But we missed some opportunities there as well, because after the Nevlin Center closed, which was a building owned by the school for strange historical reasons, their human services existed. All those places, all the nonprofits providing services got turfed out and have to face market rent. And so as we build up new places like the senior center, I would like to see some also investment alongside the nice amenities and the for service amenities, the for payment amenities, to include, hey, what do we do? Where are opportunities to help some of the folks in Ankeny that are not making as much money, that are having some struggle with food security, who, maybe the property taxes on their now $200,000 house are providing a burden? What are the things we can do with those taxes to help with those folks as well? Like I said, by and large, we've done a really good job. We all like living here. I love living here. And Ankeny's done a good job of investing. But as we get bigger, we need to look at the margins.
All right, Joe, finish us up on this question.
So lowering taxes is great, and I support that. But when I've been out in the community, most residents don't understand their tax bill. And when we sit here and say we've lowered taxes, they don't know, because most of it's escrowed, or the school raised theirs, or county assessments went up. So what my goal is to make sure they understand the value of their tax dollar. That when we lower taxes, we never cut any programs or cut any services. We did it based on growth. And that when they're in their neighborhood, that they receive the value that the neighborhood is safe. When they're driving across town, when you're sitting at a red light or 5 red lights in a row, you don't understand your tax value. When you're sitting at that light, you're mad because you can't get across town safely and efficiently. So I believe we can improve on that. Again, I like how past and current councils have approached it, but I don't want to fall behind. I don't want our police overwhelmed, and I don't want our fire staff overwhelmed as we grow at 6 to 7 people per year. So again, I like how the city has taken the approach, but I also want to make sure we don't lower our guard on value.
All right, thank you. And we've completed the questions that were from the Chamber Committee or membership or public in advance of the forum. Let's go ahead and start with some questions from the audience. The first one of these, and it will start with Bill. How do you view the working relationship between the city and Ankeny schools? What do you see as your role in the relationship?
I'd say we need to continue to communicate with one another, because we both value the same thing, and that's the residents and the residents' families. We're all here, we're all in the city, we're in this together to continue to make this the best place to live in Iowa. And we both are responsible for collecting tax dollars. So the citizens need to know as well that we are communicating with one another and understanding that their money is important and that we are spending it as we believe that will better them the best.
All right, Nathan, please continue.
Yeah, one of the interesting things about the relationship between the city and the schools is, of course, that we help to build the community that the schools have to serve, right? And so one of the things that I really want to work with the school district on is, as we figure out where growth is going, where growth is going to be, what kind of residential growth and commercial to a certain extent growth in certain areas is going to be, how we can plan with the schools so that they put schools in the right place, and so that we are not accidentally creating a case where 10 years down the line, there's going to be one school that's going to have a whole bunch of lower socioeconomic status students that then overburdens the school system, right? We want to have a way that we can look and work with the schools and do our own jobs, so that we've got an Ankeny where each school and each student in each school to really set up for success. So that's one way which we can work with them. The other one, of course, is, if you look, there's all kinds of weird little land swaps that go on. And so an attitude of cooperation, saying, hey, how can we make sure that government-owned property is in the right government's hands or usage, that if there's a plot that the city has that a school really needs to go on, then working with the schools to say, hey, can we swap? Can we find some other way to transfer this so that it is the best for the community of Ankeny, not just the best for the city, not just the best for the schools, but best for the overall community of Ankeny. And that's another one. And the third one, I think, is as we do our urban planning, implement our strategic comprehensive plan, making sure that there are options for people to get to the schools that aren't necessarily just driving, to give people who are in those neighborhoods the opportunity to walk to the schools, because anyone who sat in the car line at any school knows that it's the worst place on earth, right? And so providing people a chance to avoid that on a daily basis and overall improve the pleasure and good attitude of the city.
Joe.
So 45% of my property taxes go to the schools. So yes, I have a vested interest in what goes on with the relationship between the city and school. And that's where the majority of our property tax money goes. I know that if elected, I would open the opportunity to work with council and school board. And it's not what I believe or what the mayor believes or what the school board believes. It's what the community needs. And if that's what the community needs, we need to make an effort to build that relationship and improve that, so that the community understands the value of their school and their city tax.
All right, thank you, Kelly. Close us out.
Historically, we've had a great school system here in Ankeny, and I think it's one of the things that's really built our community is, everyone knows that Ankeny has had great schools. I've been proud to be on the city school committee, which is a committee between the council and the school board where we meet and, hash out overlap items that we may have some difficulties on, and that's historically been really enjoyable too. A lot of parents have told me during this election that they wish that the school board looked more like the city council, meaning that, they're like, I don't know who's on the city council. I don't care because I don't ever hear drama coming out of the city council. I would like the same for the school board. And so I think we need to get back to a place where we can, have faith in our school board and trust them to make the decisions that are right for the community, so that, we can kind of get back together as a community and heal a little bit. We also hear this from businesses. We're starting to hear concerns from businesses about, the drama within our schools. And so I look forward to continuing the work on the city school committee and bringing that great product to our community.
Thank you all for your answers. We have probably one more question. We'll see how the timing goes. What is your approach to ensuring Ankeny has an adequate water supply? And we'll start this question with Nathan.
My favorite question. It's been weird on the campaign trail this year. I've heard all kinds of suggestions from people that we should be more like California, both in water and in taxes, and it's been weird to me. So for me, I think that this is a really big and important question because it's the same as with DART, right? Where the waterworks is used to serving Des Moines, and when we were little suburbs out in the corners, then they knew what to do with us. And now that we are actually large, they're not really sure what to do with us. And I think as we go forward, the best solution would be if we can work with the waterworks, develop more capacity and develop more liability with them and not be seen sort of as client states to them. I don't know if that's possible. Right. And so one of the things that we'll need to do to provide with the water supply is take a look and see, hey, can we continue working with the waterworks? Can we continue working and having one joint solution in the region? Because I think that is overall more efficient as a solution. We don't want to have little water fiefdoms all fighting for the same water. And so working together is the best answer. But in order to do that, it might have to mean sort of really sitting down with the waterworks and understanding, hey, what is your actual capacity to serve us? Can you reliably do it? And if not, looking at other solutions regionally. But really, I think whatever we do going forward, we need to make sure we're working in a cooperative manner in a way that is not just grabbing the water early, but also involves conservation of water and conservation efforts, because the aquifers are not refilling in Iowa, and we can only pull so much water out of rivers at a time. And so we need to have some kind of comprehensive solution as we look toward that. And I think that it's important that we work not only with other suburbs in our region, but also see how we can continue to partner with Des Moines if that's possible.
Thank you for the answer. Joe?
It is critical for us to secure water for the future today. There's no two ways around it. Our cheapest water is now. It's never going to be cheaper in the future. And, you know, none of us, we take water for granted. None of us have went to our faucet and it didn't turn on. But if we don't make a plan for the future, we could be faced with that reality. And what it comes down to is we need fair representation in Des Moines, a seat at the table, so that we can have an influence and have a decision in the process and a decision in the future of our water, in the future of our infrastructure and our improvements, of what those dollars are used for.
All right, thank you very much. Kelly?
You know, I think it comes down to three things. First off, we need to renegotiate our capacity. That's a lot of our problems, and it comes from our growth and having, you know, a lower capacity probably than what we need. We need to make sure we're not paying for old Des Moines water infrastructure. So, you know, as we, you know, mesh up with the Des Moines Waterworks, we need to make sure we're paying for Ankeny infrastructure, not dated Des Moines infrastructure. And lastly, we need to look at diversifying sources of water. You know, aquifers are a great option. We have 2 rivers that flow into this metro. And we need to take advantage of all water resources and really look at diversifying how we process our water.
Thank you. Bill?
Kind of what Joe said, I do take water for granted. I didn't really think about it in the past. And I think the first step we need to do is more awareness to our community. Let them know that water is important, well, it's obvious water is important, but it's something we need to address sooner than later, because if that is part of an infrastructure that regular citizens don't even think about. When I thought of an infrastructure in the past, I thought about roads, sewers, traffic lights. That's about it. Some folks don't know the important value that water is to our infrastructure. And that's something we need to make them aware of so we can push forward to make changes.
All right, well, that concludes all our time for all of our questions. We're going to go ahead and start our closing statements if we can now. And we will start in reverse order to what we had on our opening statements. And you've got 2 minutes or so for these. We'll start here with Joe and go to Nathan, Bill, and end with Kelly. Joe, go ahead and give us your closing statements.
Well, and thank you, Chamber, and thank you for supporters for being here tonight. Again, Ankeny is not broken. We're increasingly growing. There's things we can improve on, but Ankeny is not broken. We're growing at 6 to 7 people per day. We've had great councils and staffs in the past that have helped put us into a financial position of strength. And being in that position has helped us weather some storms, okay? Last 18 months is a good example. And Ankeny has stayed a successful economic engine. And I know many, many families across town that are doing pretty well too, because of what Ankeny has provided. Keeping our fire and our police open, our parks open, the water parks, and all those services. An Ankeny business person told me that their business opened a year earlier than the one in Urbandale. They went to the council at the same time, and theirs opened a year earlier because of Ankeny, because of how we operate. And you can't say that a city that's growing at 6 to 7 people per day, we are adding diversity. We are adding more families, more grandparents. They're moving here because of opportunity, economic opportunity. So when you see me or my red signs across town, you know what I stand for. I stand for the commitment to the community, lowering taxes, a lean budget, not overspending our growth, securing clean water for the future, providing our police and fire with the resources they need, so that residents understand their neighborhoods are safe and that our police can safely get across town and efficiently. And then also maintaining Ankeny's hometown feel. The reason I moved here, the safe, clean, and affordable city that it is today. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your closing statements. We'll move now to Nathan.
Ankeny is a great place. It's a great place that works well for a lot of different people. I've heard a lot of different perspectives over my 8 years here, including at the Ankeny Citizens Police Academy, and also from people who come through my door looking for help. And most of them want to live here. It's a place they want to live. It's a place they feel good about living. And it is in those little margins that I think we can improve, because it is great. It is a place that's very desirable. 6 or 7 people move here every day, and I bet there are another 3 or 4 who wish they could. And so as we go through the next 10 years of growth, the next 20 years of growth, as we plan for that, I want us to look and say, okay, where is Ankeny not working for certain people? Where are the people who are falling through the cracks? And what can we do to make sure they're incorporated into our idea of what Ankeny is as we go forward? Because oftentimes when we miss out on some people, that has consequences we don't notice until later on. There's public safety consequences, that has consequences in our school and stresses in our schools, that has retail staffing consequences. There are all these things that go into making us a great city that get dropped when we let people fall through the cracks. And so as we go forward, we need to maintain all of the successes that we've had and also say, hey, look, we're 70,000 people now. We're moving toward 100,000. We're getting to a size where if we let people fall through the cracks too much, then it's going to be a significant number of people and it's going to affect all of our lives negatively. And so as we go forward, I want us to keep on looking at ways that we can make life work a little bit better for folks and also to grow in a way that is sustainable as we go forward. We can't just widen the roads as the only option. We need to go and find ways to make neighborhoods more walkable, more easily accessible, to keep some cars off the road so that we can prolong that experience and make the life better for all of us, so we are not stuck waiting in traffic, so we are not stuck waiting in line, so that we can celebrate and enjoy all the great amenities Ankeny has to offer.
Thank you for your closing comments. We'll move to Bill.
At the end of August, when the final candidate list for Ankeny City Council was released, I was able to sleep soundly every night. Why? Because of this impressive candidate list that we have. Regardless of the outcome of this election, I'd say the city of Ankeny is in pretty good hands. I've attended several city council meetings, and Kelly's a great congressperson or council person. She's smart, knows what she's doing, and brings good ideas to the table. I met Nathan just 5 months ago. He's the coolest pastor I know and knows the needs of the citizens better than almost anyone I know, and has great ideas to address those needs. I just met Joe today, but I've been following his campaign, and he values public safety and infrastructure as much as I do. So I appreciate that. I spent the last 5 months talking about myself, so I just thought I'd take this opportunity to talk about other folks. Overall, the city of Ankeny and the residents already won when the 4 of us submitted our candidacy. Thank you.
Thank you for your closing comments. And Kelly, you will close out this discussion.
So there's so much to be proud of in Ankeny. You know, as I touched on earlier, the council voted to lower the levy for the 8th consecutive time, making us the lowest tax levy of any major city in Polk County and among the lowest in the state. We're nearing completion on a senior and community center that's going to bring great amenities to our seniors and much needed gym space to the community. And we did it in a taxpayer-friendly way by partnering with Polk County and offering naming rights in exchange for some really significant funds. So I'm really proud of that. We've sought to maintain Ankeny's hometown feel with thoughtful development and community events, and we continue to win on attracting commercial development, bringing new amenities to Ankeny, and helping offset the tax burden for homeowners. For these and a lot of other reasons, I'm asking you to continue letting me support our community as a member of the council. It really fills my cup. I love serving this community, and I look forward to continuing to make Ankeny a great place to call home. Thanks.
Thank you. Excellent closing comments by all 4 candidates. You've done an excellent job, and none of you knew any of the questions that were going to be thrown your way, so you've really given some good thought and good rhetoric to answering them. This concludes our Ankeny City Council Candidate Forum. On behalf of the Ankeny Area Chamber, I'd like to thank our candidates. Let's give them a round of applause. also like to thank all of you that are here in the chamber and also on the first level that are paying attention to the content of this forum. The election for Ankeny Mayor, City Council, and the school board takes place on Tuesday, November 2nd, 2021, at your usual polling location. Or early voting is now available, currently available, I should say, in person at the Polk County Auditor's Office in Des Moines from now until 5 p.m. on the evening of November 1st. Tomorrow night, join us here again at the library for the Ankeny School Board Candidate Forum, which starts at 6 o'clock, same location, and is also on live stream. We'd like to wish you all a very good night, and there is some time for you to visit with the candidates here at the close. Thanks for coming.